Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us in this next exciting conversation, another Customer Futures conversation. I'm delighted to be joined today by Jonathan from Digidentity and Carly from MePassport. And we'll do introductions in a minute, but I've been really looking forward to this conversation because so much of the talk about data and identity and privacy is very technical and very grounded in how it works and not what it can do, especially, in the UK around identity recently and wallets and, right to work and that kind of thing. And why I'm excited is MePassport's doing something really different. It's starting with the problem. It's starting with real needs of real people. And I want to talk about it in a bit more detail with Carly because I think Carly's amazing. MePassport, the business is amazing, and we really want to get the message out there that identity and making things portable can really have a big impact for real people. So maybe we'll just do very quick introductions, and then Carly, we can dive in. But Carly, quick intro.
Yeah, so I'm Carly Rochester and I'm one of the co-founders of MePassport. And I'll tell you a bit about my story shortly.
Brilliant, John.
Yeah, very, very simply. Hi, guys. Jonathan Evans. I work for Digidentity. So we are, how do we describe us? We're the kind of technology engine behind the identity component of the MePassport product, which I'm sure we'll dive into in more detail later.
Brilliant. Okay, let's get into it. So Carly, before we kind of do maybe a bit of the reveal of MePassport and the product and the work you're doing at the moment, I'd love to go back a bit. Like how, tell us a bit about how you got here, some of the things you observed in the market that needed to be fixed, and why MePassport came about.
Sure. So my background is not tech or anything like that. I mean, a few years ago, if you would have told me that I'm part of an organization that we're launching sort of a digital identity in the market and all of that sort of stuff, I think I would have just laughed. But the reality is, what led me down the path of coming up with MePassport, myself and Jon, my background is social care. And I've worked in social care for about 26 years now. And from the minute I sort of started when I was about 19, now there are some digital checks that have changed, like we can do sort of online DBSs and things like that. But overall, everybody that joins a care organisation starts from scratch. And you constantly see that we've got a recruitment crisis, or we've got challenges with recruitment, we've got high mobility within the sector, all of those sort of things. And for me being in the job, I see the human element of that. So where the whole concept come from, I had a call from a dad, and his daughter was under our care, and she'd been under our care for a few years, and she was actually in remission from cancer. Not long before, within her journey with us as well, she also lost her mum to cancer, and she was only young. She had just turned 30. And her dad called me up and said she'd had a checkup at the hospital, and what they thought would go very well was actually really devastating news. She was told that actually the cancer was back. It was stage 4 and she had weeks to live. And she'd just celebrated her 30th birthday. So obviously that is absolutely devastating to hear. On the other side of that, it was like we had inclement weather, we had carers off because their childcare had fallen through, they had car problems, we had sickness, we had all of these things. So we had literally very limited capacity. And what he wanted, and what we needed to make sure that we could provide, was additional care, good continuity of care, carers that she had going in that she felt comfortable with. Our job is to make that transition into, her path, unfortunately, to the end, is to make sure it's comfortable for everyone around. But, sometimes you feel like a magician because the intent is there to provide that service, but there's power in people, right? You can do anything with people, but if you've got a limited amount of people, you can't do these things. So at the time, I sort of sat there and I come off the phone devastated for what I'd heard. And I was like, well, how are we going to make this happen? Because we'd already had carers in the community who had taken extra calls. We'd had to cancel some holidays, all of this sort of stuff. So at the time, I sort of spoke to my HR lady and said, look, where are the new carers? Now, I wouldn't have put new carers into this situation, obviously, but what I could have done was, which we do as coordinators, is develop different rounds so we can take off services that are lower priority, like shopping or sit-ins or whatever else it is. And we can create different, we can put new carers out with, on double-handed rounds or whatever else it is. We can do all of these things. We can build capacity within our schedules, but we can only do that of people. And at the time, she come in and we had 16 people going through the recruitment process. So I just took them off of her and I had a look. And these were carers that some of them had 13 years experience, some of them had 6 years experience, some of them had no experience, some of them had 2 years experience, but ultimately they was all out of work. So they was looking for work. I needed carers. I've got carers actually that had transferable skills, but they had no quick route in to our organisation. So looking at their timelines as well, they had DBSs that weren't on the update service, that was out of date. We was waiting on references. They'd lost some of their paperwork, all of this sort of stuff that was holding up the process. And I just thought, you know what? Sitting in this chair, looking after vulnerable people, their problems are much bigger than what we have. And it's up to us in this position to make sure that we bring things into the market or develop things that help the end user, not only the end user as well, but actually the people that want to work in care, because we're constantly saying, we've got no carers. Well, let's make it easier for carers to stay in the market. I think I went home that night and I sort of joke about it, but I had a bath and I was like to my husband, it was about 11:30 at night. I said, listen, just don't even call me because, this day has been, terrible. I mean, based on the fact as well, I was walking in my house at 11:30. I thought, do you know what? If I can travel the world on a passport that looks nothing like me anymore, why can I not build, own and share my data to give me access to employment opportunities so that I bring benefits to the market that I want to work in, and the market also benefits from me and my capacity. So we solved the issue with making sure that this young lady had the proper care that she required up to the end of her life. And then I later sort of contacted the local authority and said, listen, I don't know anything about tech, but what I do know is the sector that I've worked in for over 2 decades, and I know the impact that the carers make to the people are not interested in us sitting in an office, pushing pens, doing schedules. We're sort of the unseen workforce, and that's rightly so because it's the carers that are out there doing the job. But, I've had this idea, where do I go to sort of bring this to the market? How do we create this? How do we bring this out? Because for so long now, and to this day, we all do it. We sit in a room and we all talk about problems and we say, we're going to meet up in 2 weeks and we're going to talk about them problems again. And we're going to think about how we're going to deal with these problems and, all that sort of stuff. And in 5 years, we're still sitting in a room saying, remember when we spoke about the problem 5 years ago, the problem's still there. And I just thought, I'm done with talking about problems. Like, how do we bring a product out to the market? So that was sort of my introduction to how this sort of, the idea come about. And it wasn't much long after that, that lucky Jonathan had me stalking him saying, I've had this idea. How do we connect?
Absolutely brilliant. Maybe, John, you pick up the baton. What happened at that point in terms of saying, how do we build something that's going to have real impact and isn't just about another technology solution?
Yeah, I think that's quite a good segue into how I enter the story. I remember it must have been at least 4 years ago, Carly, maybe 5 years ago, and I got this phone call from a number that I didn't recognize, and usually I don't pick them up. Um, I guess luckily for both of us, I did, and I tell the story. Carly had me at hello. To quote a phrase, it was the use case and the passion that came from this person that I had actually met and hadn't seen before was just so impactful. And, I mean, we've worked together quite a long time. I've known each other quite a long time. And, Digidentity really well, Jamie. And we work for clients in financial services, insurance, retail, all over the place, tens of thousands of them. This is my favorite use case. And it's my favorite use case for what I do, digital identity, because of the human impact. And, Carly can tell, a number of anecdotes around the human cost of not doing things effectively for her sector. So to be able to be a part, and a small part of that process was just like, yes, where do I sign? Now, obviously, the vision came from Carly. I mean, what we do, Jamie, just to close off, is that we do the identity bit, which is the bit that we're good at, right? So before you do all the fun, fancy stuff that Carly and MePassport does, in facilitating the kind of challenges that her sector has, you need to know that Jonathan is Jonathan, and you need to know it to the required, I think it's CQC standard, government standard. And that's the bit that we do. And they use our SDK within an app that they've developed. So you go through a kind of registration process, and, the people watching this video will be well aware and, very au fait with what that looks like. But the important thing is that it's robust, and you can hang on all the other things that are required, in that kind of recruitment HR vetting process, like right to work and disclosure and barring and the reference checks and all these other things that the passport does. But fundamentally, we're that quite small bit at the beginning.
Brilliant. And the thing that really sticks out for me, Carly, is this isn't just, we better do our ID checks because the regulation says we've got to do it. It's because people are looking for opportunities to help in their community, and there's demand on the other side saying, like, we desperately need help. And there's just friction. There's these barriers in the middle. And not only does it, get to all the important and good work that the care community carry out, but it's also creating opportunities, employment, for those who can actually provide it. So I guess maybe talk a bit about MePassport. Like, what does it do now? Where have you got to? And we'll talk a bit about some of the impact that you're already having.
Yeah. So we never launched until April last year, like properly. We had COVID and things like that, and also we went on this whole development journey. And initially, as well, we was sort of part of the local government association, so we done sort of social digital innovation program, and we was part of in discussion with NHS Digital and all of that sort of stuff. But we actually went it alone, and we launched last April, and the product now has evolved quite a lot. So Jonathan, although he says is a little part, is the most important part, because it is the validation of identity of the person that's coming into the app. So we have that verification, and then they go on and create a whole passport that is compliant to Safer Recruitment Regulation 19 for CQC, because obviously it was born in social care, and it was developed for social care. So once we, developed the app, then it was like, right, well, how do they use it? How do they share it? All of the consents around that sort of stuff. It was really important for us right at the start to say, right, okay, when we develop this, the owner of the data will always be the actual owner of the passport. Nobody's going to share it without them. They hold complete control. This tool is about empowering the workforce to have access to employment opportunities. So we developed all of the CQC Regulation 19, where they have a DBS check, they have their right to work check, they have references, we validate their employment history. We have a variety of different sort of checks and balances on gap detection and all that sort of stuff. And then once somebody is ready to work, if they're connected with a provider already, they're advised, you're now ready to share your data, or your checks are back. Do you wish to share your data? And they would literally go in and give the provider access. if they've organically come into the market and they've just heard about MePassport and they think, right, okay, I want a job in social care, they independently will just download the app, join the platform, create their passport, and then they can connect with providers that sit in our job board. So there's a few different things that we later added. One was a job board where providers could add all their vacancies, so that work ready, in a sense, fully compliant passport holders are able to apply for jobs. Um, and then also, if I'm working with a provider, now half of the market is 0-hour contracts, so I might really have a great provider, really love this provider, but the reality is, like, and I hear about this all the time, but they won't leave because they really like their provider. Well, if it ain't paying the bills, they're going to leave, right? So what we did was we said, right, okay, if you're only getting 10 or 20 hours with that provider, you don't have to leave. What you can now do is show the market that you're open to work, and put yourself within a marketplace, turn your light on, so to speak, to say, I'm here, I'm local, I drive, I work weekend, I've got availability the weekends, I've got experience in this is all my credentials, hook me up sort of thing, connect with me. And providers are actually able to visibly see capacity in the market and connect with them. And also as well, which is a sort of a later development, once we sort of launched in social care, lots of the providers, like employers that we speak to, also do childcare services, or they work in education and things like that. So we've now got a new sort of module within the passport called Work Wizard. And what Work Wizard does is, once the passport holder, for an example, they work within social care and they say, right, okay, now I want to work I don't know, with children as well. What do I need to do? So they'll literally input their desired job role, and we've hooked up with AI, and AI will create them a whole list of different checks that they would need to undertake, or tell them the gap. They have a whole gap analysis, and then they'll be able to upgrade different elements of their checks. So not all. The passport will always be as good as, the identity is still done, their employment history is still there, all of that sort of stuff. So they don't have to repeat that, but it's agile enough now to be able to move around with them, and also give people vision, because they might be just thinking, well, I might want to go into this, and what does that look like? So press a button, you'll find out. And if you want to do some extra training in the meantime before you do your checks, these are the training courses. They're in the marketplace. You connect. So we've got sort of a marketplace where they can upgrade their checks and sort of have that agility in the market where they can move around it in different sectors.
The thing that really strikes me about this whole project and product and the journey being on is it's exactly the opposite way around of the way most businesses think about it. It's usually, I've got to do this check and it's an overhead, but I've got to do it. And I might go and find a provider that's just going to help me solve that one specific part. And it's going to cost me. How cheaply can we do it? You're starting exactly the other way around, which is there's this burning need in the market. It's a problem to be solved. What's the smartest and best way for us to do this? It's actually going to have real impact. And yeah, we're not starting with the tech. We're not even starting with identity. We're starting with the problem and how do we get people who are available matched to the jobs that could be available to them locally,
Yeah.
but also what the checks we need to do. So I just love it. What do you think's, what surprised you the most? Was it something that you thought would be difficult that was easy, or something that's taken longer than you thought? What surprised you the most about building MePassport?
I think that so I think I had this big convoluted idea around I don't know whether I could say it, but like how do I say it? Like professional bodies, or different local authorities. Like some are great and some are, a little bit more difficult. And what I mean by that is not the local authorities difficult. What I found very interesting is you hear about, oh, we've got this problem and it's costing this much money and we're in crisis, and you see all of these reports on LinkedIn and all these sound bites like we've got to act now and save social care and whatever else it is, and the sector has tons of passionate people driven to make change. But equally so, there's a lot of social climbers that just put sound bites out there that actually could really help you to get something into the market quicker, if you like. But it's almost like people are if something's new and that everyone's risk adverse. So even if it makes sense, even if if I could sit here with 1,000 people and say, right, okay, I'm going to give you this group of 10 carers, they're going to join all your organisations, or you can have a verified identity that's portable, that's transferable across you all. You get these digital stamps so we can all see where these carers are moving for safeguarding and, all of that sort of stuff. What makes sense? They'll all say, oh, MePassport is absolutely a no-brainer. Okay, how can you help us to get into the market? And that's it. I think that I had this sort of idea that, you go to a local authority and you say, look, this is what this does, and these are your cost savings. Look, this just doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense how it's all working, and they completely agree. But you can't find a decision maker. So you go into these buildings and there's 1,000 directors. Like, maybe you caught me on a bad day and I'm talking a bit down, and I don't want to do that, because the whole sector is full of really good people. But equally so, there are people that, are social climbers. I see them on LinkedIn and I think, I don't know what you do, because behind the scenes I've talked to you, and apart from sound bites, to me, you're clickbait.
Do you know what thing is, Carly? There's a point here about getting things into market is not just about having a good idea and a great product, and even there being real tangible market need. It's about having the right organizations with the right attitude and be able to make decisions quickly. And so much of it is about, some of the kind of corporate glue, sometimes I've heard it called, kind of things just go a little slower. Jonathan, I mean, you've been in identity a long time, and this is a very tangible and exciting product. What surprised you the most about working with MePassport?
Carly's stamina. I mean, it's pretty impressive. I mean, we've been working in identity a similar length of time, and we've got the scars to show it. These things take a long time. This is no longer, I mean, what Carly's articulating is, when she was talking there, when I spent a lot of time in Scotland and London over the last couple of weeks, talking about digital identity for the legal sector. And we have a fantastic product that does efficiency, cost savings, compliance, amazing. And yet trying to get lawyers to actually adopt it is so difficult. And you realize that it is not a technology problem anymore. It's not even a legislative problem anymore. It's a behavioral change problem. And that is the kind of last frontier for making this thing, really, really kick off. And it's not just health and social care. It's incredibly frustrating, but it's just, testament to the sort of passion and endeavors of Carly and her team that, we're still pressing ahead, and, it will happen. The challenge that Carly and her team, MePassport, we have is that age-old challenge in digital identity is the kind of chicken and egg. So you've heard her talk about the passport, what we call the passport, which is the kind of the app on the phone with all your credentials that, it makes you compliant and facilitates, a fast onboarding to your new employment. There's also the kind of marketplace you talked about, which facilitates the connecting of the care providers to the prospective employees. You're building both sides of the market. So you've got that chicken and egg, care providers will say, we love it. Where are the verified employees? The employees say, we love it, but where can I use it? So that's a real challenge. So maintaining the focus is quite tricky, and maintaining the stamina. But we will get there. So nothing's really surprising in terms of the technology, the rollout, and the kind of the time it takes. But I've been very impressed by the fact we're still going and we're making waves.
Yeah, and just going back to sort of, I think, when I had these sort of ideas around, bringing it to local authorities and, them seeing how it would impact hospital discharge positively, because people wouldn't be stuck in if we can free up capacity in the market and the actual providers can see the capacity, if we can empower the workforce, presenting the cost savings, all of this sort of stuff. But getting decisions from local authorities, I'm just parked that, but we've done really, really well, just going out and sort of hustling, going directly to care providers, going directly to actual, carers. I mean, you say to a carer, look, you do this, you do it once. As once? Well, yeah, once. How many DBSs you got? I've got 10. Well, what do you got to have 10 for? No one told me about the update service. What, I don't have to fill in a 21-page application form. No, you fill this in once and this will grow with you. So the actual, after you get over those barriers, and like I said, I don't want to talk down too much, because we've had really, really supportive people, and the sector is filled with passionate people. I think that, you just realise, I never come into this to be an entrepreneur, or like, somebody that's, just, I'm not in it for the money, basically. I was just in it because there's a problem and we want to solve it. And, us now, the mindset's just shifted, where we just went, right, just go straight to market, straight to the providers, get them on board, straight to the actual workers. Let's prove concept. And that's gone really, really well. I mean, we still have challenges, because lots of times company directors will say, this is amazing, speak to our HR team. So you're like, okay, yep, no problem. But the HR team go, well, this is my job. I don't like this. This is my job. So you're like, well, listen, chasing references all day, there's no value in that. You'll still have a job, but technology will be able to do a big part of the job for you. But now what you can do is focus on values-based recruitment. So rather than us always firefighting, saying, well, that person's got 5 years experience, they drive and they want to do Saturday, yeah, get them in. We haven't met them yet, yeah, but get them in because we need them. Because that's the reality of how people talk in the care sector, I know. Now it's now they could be like, right, okay, I've got 10 carers that's fully compliant, that's open to work. This is their availability. Let's spend a bit of time learning a bit about them to make sure they're a good fit for our organisation. And then maybe some of the, the mobility within the sector might slow down a little bit, because we're values-based recruiting for people that match our organisation.
We keep coming back to the benefits of this thing. Some of them are just save time, no more 21-page form. Some of them are maybe they happen further downstream. We can improve the availability and capacity in the hospitals because people will be able to be released faster. The benefits are everywhere. Every angle you look at this, it's just good. The thing you did a couple of weeks ago, though, really blew my mind. Tell us about the revolving door and the statistics you found about, or you've surfaced about the cost of actually the time, the effort, the money being spent on re-verifying care employees.
Yeah, so Skills for Care each year do a state of the workforce data set. And what they tell you is how many leavers have been have left the market, or within those leavers, how many have stayed in the market but moved around the market. They also tell you that 59% of recruitment comes from within the market. So we're all fishing from the same pond. And then, so we looked at that, and then we looked at hospital discharge delays. So delays from NHS data to say these delays attribute, this percentage attributes to social care capacity. So not enough care workers, providers saying there's not enough availability or whatever else. So what we did was we simulated the data. So we put both the data sets together to say, right, okay, this is not our facts, this is your facts. This is what you've presented to the market. So now I'm going to stimulate it to show you the impact. We got the cost of per carer, and everybody has a different cost per carer. Some say to onboard a carer it cost me 6,000. Some say it cost me 2,500. Some say it's cost me 3,000. So we was like, do you know what? Go to the lowest one, £2,500 per carer. Tell me the hospital bed cost per day, and let's stimulate what the NHS data tells us about social care delays, and let's stimulate the data set that come from Skills for Care on mobility. And what we did was we done it across a 2-year period with all of their data and all of their figures, and we calculated it, and in 2 years it come up that the sector had spent 5.5 billion re-recruiting its own staff and not having enough staff in the sector, with the bed delays and everything like that. So that's just 2 years. And what I'll say about that 5.5 billion is that we'll spend another 5.5 billion in another 2 years if we don't implement something that's sector-wide, because otherwise we can't keep moaning about a problem if we're not changing anything. Do you know what I mean? So 5.5 billion, I'm hearing all the time, like, the government need to give us, I don't know, £2 billion extra for social care. Listen, it's completely underfunded, 100%. The carers need much more money. It's an undervalued workforce, because what they do is honestly superb. But can we just look about where we're wasting money and then see where we can redeploy that money, because there's clearly cash to burn if we're burning cash like that.
And this is the thing that really I want to get across, that we look at what's the business case for identity. All right, well, how much is a check and how's it going to be used and what's the waste inside a business? We've got it written there, like how many times are we employing the same people who've got to go through the same identity checks? And that's not even including some of the gaps in the market, because there's people who can work and the people who need to work, but they're not allowed to either start working or they can't find each other, right? So those billions of pounds are massively conservative of what the real cost is, but also the real impact. And that's before you even start talking about real human lives, people with cancer, people who need help overnight, people who are in difficult situations, who we can help if only these enabling tools are in place.
No, definitely.
What's the you put that revolving door website up that talks about the numbers. What's the website for that, Carly? I'll make sure we post to it after.
Yeah, I don't know what it's called now, but I'll send you the link and we can we'll attach it to this. Yeah,
we make sure we send it out to everyone. So look, I mean, there's not a lot more I want to say about this. It packs such a punch as a story, as a reason to do digital identity and get it right, but not because it's a great technology or not because it, improves conversion on a website to get a loan. There's a real opportunity to have a real impact on people's lives. And you've started with the real problem that was in your own life, that you saw an opportunity to make a difference. Where can people find you, Carly, if they want to follow up?
Yeah, so Carly at MePassport.co.uk. I'm also active on LinkedIn, so you can contact me on there. But yeah, hook me up.
And Jon, if they want to hear a bit more about Digidentity and some of the work you do to enable these kind of projects, how can they get hold of you?
Yeah, J Evans at digidentity.com. I'm active on LinkedIn, like Carly. Be delighted to have a chat to anybody. I mean, it's such a compelling use case, such a compelling story as well. I love talking about it.
Brilliant. Well, look, if you're watching this or know someone who might be interested in this, let's start that conversation about how we can use identity to improve these kind of use cases. But get in touch with Carly, get in touch with Jon or I to work out how we can help, because I want to share this story and get MePassport used broadly in as many places that can be helpful as possible. So thank you, Carly. Thank you, Jon, for your time. We'll catch up in the next Customer Features conversation. Thanks so much.
Okay.
Fantastic. Thanks. Thanks, Jamie. Thanks, Carly. Bye-bye.